Creek fire. It looks like there is a devastating impact on the gorge. I also want to say thank you to the firefighters, our National Guardsmen and women, and first responders who are literally working around the clock to protect homes and property, and of course Oregonians from the fires. Just to give you a couple of updates on the Eagle Creek fire and the current conditions. You're probably aware that we are seeing unprecedented runs in this fire over the last 24 hours. It has run 13 miles in 16 hours, due in part to multiple factors: winds 30 to 40 miles an hour, fuels, very dry weather conditions. The scale of the containment efforts at this point in time, the fire is 0% contained. Obviously, the cause of the fire is under investigation. We are operating under unified command. That means we've got federal, state, interstate, and local resources all working together. Today I activated an additional 250 guard troops. That means we have over a total of 600 National Guards, men and women, supporting our firefighting efforts throughout the state of Oregon. Last night, and I'll let some of the other folks talk about the heroic efforts to save critical infrastructure. We were able, folks working last night were able to save Multnomah Lodge, at least for the time being, save access to our state parks and our fish hatcheries. As we all know, I-84 is closed currently. The Union Pacific Railroad is closed. We're very concerned, obviously, about the Bonneville power grid and the Bull Run watershed being at risk. I invoked the emergency conflagration action earlier this week, actually over the weekend, to make sure that our firefighting efforts were coordinated and that we are making sure we're putting every single resources that we have on the ground and making sure that all crews are available. I'll look forward to your questions in a minute. We are working very hard to preserve, obviously, make sure that our Oregonians and our firefighters are safe, preserve our homes and our critical infrastructure. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the governor did a great job of breaching the fire, so I'm just going to tell you a quick story. We had crews in there yesterday working around the communities of Dodson and Warrendale, and with their combined efforts, working with ODF, working with all of our partners in the U.S. Forest Service, Wildland, structural firefighters working together, they were able to save 58 structures in there. They were able to get in there, and it was really a gutsy effort. They had to work to make that fire move around those structures rather than burning through them, and it was house by house, structure by structure. So I'll take your questions later.
Good afternoon. Just a few updates from the 12 o'clock press conference. I want to clarify, earlier at the noon press conference we discussed the western boundary of the level 3 evacuation area as being Evans Road and Corbett. That is incorrect. The western boundary is the 38700 block of Columbia River Highway, which is roughly about 3 miles east of Evans Road. So again, the western boundary of the level 3 evacuation area in Corbett is the 38700 block of Columbia River Highway. I have some new numbers here as far as the number of residences that have been affected in each evacuation area. Again, our level 3 evacuation area is approximately 400 residences. Our level 2 is approximately 850 residents, 850. And our level 1, which went into effect this morning here, essentially the east side of Troutdale, is approximately 3,400 residences in that area. Again, we want to reiterate, do not come into the areas affected by the fire. We are still getting reports from deputies who are patrolling the area, fire crews who are in the area, who are having to deal with people who should not be in these areas. They're curious, they're taking pictures, they're taking video. I cannot emphasize enough how dangerous that is. It places extra stress on the resources we have in the area. It does not allow fire crews and law enforcement to focus on what they need to be focusing on. So please do not drive out here, do not come out here to these areas. Thank you.
With that, I'd ask, we have about 4 or 5 minutes for questions. If people would like to direct their questions, whether it's a state or local question, you can go ahead and begin.
Governor Brown, I know it's obviously the first concern here is life and property, and everyone's very concerned about resource for Oregonians and Washingtonians. Can you elaborate a little bit on what that means for our state and going forward?
Sure. Obviously, our top priority is to protect Oregonians and public safety, and of course, Washingtonians as well. Second, critical infrastructure. In terms of the gorge, it is a special place for many of us, and we are very concerned about the impact of this fire. It's looking roughly around 10,000 acres at this point, and the conditions are very intense. So we're very concerned and doing everything we can to both contain and put every resources that we have available on it.
Does the state have enough resources to battle this fire with so many fires going in the state?
I just want to give you perspective about what's happening. So on the Chetco Bar fire, we're at roughly 170,000 acres there. Last week we had over 1,400 personnel on that fire. I've activated at this point over 600 National Guardsmen and women. They essentially are not at a firefighting level. They're a post cleanup mop-up capacity. So we are putting every resources that we have into this one, into Chetco Bar, to a number of the fires in Central Oregon. Do we need more? Certainly. We're using everything that we have available to us.
Governor, what's the plan if more evacuations become necessary? Where will those people go?
Talk with the sheriff. You want to talk? We can talk about the sheriff. I'll just tell you the wonderful efforts that have been happening down on the Chetco Bar. We opened up our parks free of charge to folks that were being evacuated in the Chetco Bar in the Southern Oregon area. And then we've been partnering with our California partners as well to provide shelter resources, and the Red Cross has stepped up to the plate.
So
I'm going to let him respond in more detail.
As far as emergency shelters, if the area that's in a level 1 right now were to get elevated to a level 2, the Multnomah County Office of Emergency Management have been working on contingency plans to identify potential locations for shelters. In addition, most folks have noticed after a noon press conference that the current shelter at Nonhood Community College is very close to the southern boundary of our level 1 evacuation area. So there is contingency planning going on by the Multnomah County Emergency Management, Office of Emergency Management, and if and when the decision is made that additional shelters need to be opened or that shelter needs to be moved, then the Sheriff's Office will assist in any way we can to make that happen.
Governor, a couple more questions for you.
I think you get one.
Sure. What would you like to see happen to the person or people who started this fire?
Look, the cause of the fire is under investigation at this point. I would expect that they be held fully accountable for what has happened. But I think more broadly, it's a lesson for all of us in terms of how we go about our daily lives and the potential impact on communities, our surrounding communities, and our environment. We are under very dry conditions right now, and whether it's a cigarette, a lawnmower, a car off the road, people need to be extremely careful. Obviously, fire banned in certain areas. Folks need to be extremely careful and conscientious of how they're going about their lives.
Governor, the Bull Run watershed is very close to the fire perimeter. Just looking at that map, it's the drinking water for 1 in 5 people in this state. What is the plan to protect the Bull Run, and what happens if the fire actually burns down to the dam?
So, like I said, we're focused on preserving Oregonians' public safety. We're focused on critical infrastructure. The fire is within a couple of miles of the Bull Run watershed area. I'm well aware it's obviously the source of many Oregonians' drinking water. I know from talking to the Portland Water Bureau folks that we have an alternative source. Is there anybody here from the city? We don't have anybody here from the city. You want to?
Is there any active sort of fire protection effort happening just up in that area?
Regarding the Bull Run watershed, the Water Bureau has authorized the Forest Service to do water drops using Blue Lake and any other resources besides the reservoirs up there in order to do whatever fire suppression efforts that they need to do.
So
Governor, given the severity of the fire season, which fires can start anywhere, is there anything else that the state could be doing?
Super tanker.
I appreciate the super tanker question. We've been the super tanker question's been raised as well on the Chetco Bar fire. We have access to super tankers. The reality is, given the challenging conditions, both extreme wind conditions, gusts up to 30 and 40 miles an hour, the fact that the air has been extremely smoky, we have limited ability to use the super tankers. We are using every tool in the toolbox that we have at this point in time. As I said, we had over 1,000 folks on the Chetco Bar fire. We now have over 300 personnel here on this fire, and I've activated over 600 National Guardsmen and women.
If conditions change, would you be wanting to bring in a super tanker?
We will use all of the tools in the toolbox as weather conditions allow.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. We're going to have, thank you, Governor Brown. We're going to have some individuals from agencies if you want to do a one-on-one. But again, we appreciate you coming, and we will be doing another briefing at 6 p.m. tonight. Thank you.
Good afternoon, folks. Jim Ryan here with the Oregonian and Oregon Live. As you just heard and saw, that was a briefing with local and state officials, regional officials who are working on the Eagle Creek fire here in the Columbia River Gorge, which has burned approximately 10,000 plus acres, something around that mark at this point. Notably, the fire has prompted evacuations of about 400 residences in Multnomah County, East Multnomah County, as well as additional evacuations in the Hood River County, Cascade Locks specifically. Again, you can follow our coverage on Twitter at Oregonian, on Facebook, obviously this page, and on OregonLive.com. We will be here. Notably, the next briefing is at 6 p.m. Here at the Troutdale Police Community Center. My colleague Everton Bailey Jr. will be likely streaming that news conference and briefing, and we will continue to keep you updated on OregonLive.com. Again, it's Jim Ryan for the Oregonian and Oregon Live, and thank you for watching.